Preparing live stream. Okay, I think we're live. I'm Jeff Taterpunk. This is New World Chaos. Nemo's here. We have Neil. It's kind of our third, and our guest today is Holly from Vermont. Welcome, Holly.
Hello.
Hey.
Uh, we got a little bit of a nature theme today. Jeff decided to have a swamp background. It's
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
aesthetic.
it's swampy.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I'm actually really looking forward to this. I don't even know quite exactly where this conversation is going to go. Like,
Well,
have
it,
I think my hunch so far is we have some similarities and we have some things that we could really relate to, the experiences we had, and we have some differences. And that's exciting to me that, variety is the spice of life. So, we have a Cuban restaurant owner with us. So we might as well make this a spicy conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, this is Violet. This is my dog. I just like everyone to know she's here
what's her
because
name?
her name's Violet.
Violet.
So she'll like let us know when there's people walking around by barking.
Hey, Violet.
So and Cuban food, it's not really hot, but it's like a lot of spicy flavors, like different spices. It's more like a complex layered food than like a heat. But
Sure, sure.
trivia for you there.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting if you want to kind of share your story or kind of your experience in whatever way makes sense to you. Actually, before I forget this, I have a really random question. I have this seasoning that claims to be Cuban, and I bought it because the name is funny. It's called Slap Ya Mama.
Oh,
Does that sound legitimate, or does it just sound kind of like a gimmick?
I would have to see what's on the ingredient list because I don't know. I've never
Yeah,
heard of it.
sure. I don't know, honestly. It tastes as similar to me as like Caribbean jerk seasoning, to be honest. And I'm not. It tastes like a whole bunch of seasonings. I can't tell the difference that much.
Oh, I don't know. If you want to try something that's Cuban legit, get some Biol powder or get like anything that says Goya on it. Like get you some sazon.
Hmm.
You can like get the legit stuff.
Sure. Aren't we supposed to boycott Goya because they liked Trump or something?
One of my friends told me that, and I was like, I don't care. I mean, I grew up eating Goya, so I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care at all about boycotting canned beans.
so you have a Cuban restaurant?
Oh,
Tell us a little bit about yourself, I guess.
okay. Well, I'll tell you the story. Um, so I'm from Miami, Florida, but I moved to Vermont, and I'm a professional writer, and I'm a creative person. So I was laid off because of COVID from my job at like an SEO marketing firm where I was a writer there. So I decided I would start a business, and I love to cook, and I was always cooking for the neighbors and stuff. So I was like, why don't I just get a permit and I just like cook right out of my house? And it went really, really, really well. And I called it Miami Mommy. It's like Miami Mommy VT. It's the website, and it like took off like wildfire because I realized that there was demand because there were zero Cuban restaurants at the time in Vermont. And but I was also really making it a Miami restaurant. So like I could do Cuban, but also sometimes I'll make like Puerto Rican or Dominican or just, Florida dishes like key lime pie and stuff. So it was really like a Miami restaurant. And it took off like wildfire. And I'm really proud of all the marketing I did. Like I did all my own SEO. Like if you go to any browser and like you type Cuban food in Vermont, mine will be like first. And I'm like so proud, like so well with all that. And I did all my own photography, and I mean all the recipes were my own creative. Like I mean I did a lot of research, and I did, my own website, like my own, I could leverage Facebook. I have like 1,100 followers on Facebook. That's and I was doing it from March until like last week or something. So anyways, it's going really well. Like it took off like wildfire like that. and people loved it. Like the reviews were all like 5 stars. I mean, it was amazing. And then I was in 3 different newspapers. And like the local, I don't know, food writer lady came over and stuff. So and it was really hard because I have PTSD, and for a while I wasn't on my meds, so it was hard just to run the business, but I just kept going, and then finally I started to feel better. So things are coming along, and so it started when did it start? There was just so much drama. It seemed like there was always some random drama with someone. Um, but people didn't like the fact that my mother was Italian and my father was Greek. And I'm making Cuban food. And they thought that if I didn't like explicitly say I am not Cuban, then I was implying that I was Cuban. And I've been told I've been lying about my race through omission. So I had reposted a cartoon of Betty Boop from like one of my favorite food bloggers, Lelita Diaz, and it said Cuban until death. It was like, and I just thought it was pro-Cuban, and so people started saying that I was pretending to be Cuban. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll delete the picture. And so I had no idea until the reporter came to my house, and she's like, what about all the pushback against you online? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I thought she was just trying to start something. And I was like, oh, okay. So then the next thing that happened is that there was a trans man, and he was a customer, and he was very enthusiastic about the food. And he asked if he could work here. And I was like, well, okay, if I need another set of hands, I'll let you know. And then that's what I did. Like one day I was like, hey, do you want to come in? Like, I need some help. And he was like, no, I'm sick. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so that person called me transphobic. And the reason why he did that, as far as I can tell, is because I'm friends with a lady named Peggy, and this trans person did not like Peggy or Peggy's politics. And so this person made a call out post directed toward me on Facebook, and it said, you have to unfriend this person and you cannot be friends with them. Otherwise, you cannot be friends with me. So I ignored it. So what their friends did was they started like doing research about me and stuff. And like I'm tagged in an anti-trans database called Shinjigami Eyes. I don't know if you heard of Shinigami Eyes. Oh yeah, you almost heard. So it's like a cross-platform thing where like anyone can tag your screen name as being anti-trans or transphobic or whatnot. So so they saw this, and then they went back in my Facebook profile to like 2 years to look for posts that they found objectionable. And because when I started the business, I was like, okay, I'm going to be professional. I'm going to delete the politics, and I'm not going to have an opinion. And and you kind of have to tacitly agree that you're not going to have any voice in the political sphere if you're going to have a business. So I did that, but they kind of did it anyway. So, and it just went bananas. Like at first I tried talking to them because I was friends with a lot of the local trans people. And the thing about Vermont is it's overwhelmingly liberal, like overwhelmingly, but it's like very leftist, very far left liberal. So apparently this group of people were taking screenshots of things I had said in the past, and anything I said to them whatsoever. So they were collecting these, and it turns out that, when I told you about the Betty Boop cartoon, I had deleted it. It's like, oh, okay, fine, I'll just delete it. So they were watching from back then, and then they were like, you can't just delete these things and think we're not going to know. Like, I was like, so to them, they see that as like an admission of guilt. So I don't care. So they started telling everyone, and every time I would post on a Facebook group where I sold my food, there would be in the comments, you really have to find out people who you're giving your money to. Like, you can't give it to these bigots. And then like someone would comment, tell me more. And then the reply would be, whisper me or private message me and I'll tell you more. So I said, and I kept saying to people the same thing again and again. Hi, would you like to have a conversation? Would you like to talk to me? Would you like to tell me about what ideas of mine you don't like? Maybe you could ask me about my ideas and we could talk about yours, because this is a democracy. And in a democracy, we're supposed to persuade each other. But I was persona non grata, and none of them would talk to me. Nobody. Like there was one person I had a conversation with and screenshotted it, and they were just very like, no matter what I would say, they kept saying trans women are women, trans women are women. Like, okay, but you can't change someone's biology, you can't change their cells. Okay, trans women, da da da. So they started putting all these bad reviews on my Facebook page. Like I had 5-star reviews and I had 1-star review. And they started putting them on Google, and they started put on Yelp. And then I had to turn off Facebook reviews, and then it was like a game of telephone. Like all the rumors started to get like more and more crazy. Mm-hmm. And then one of them started saying that I wasn't really from Miami, and I was like lying about who I am. And like, that's the point. I mean, it was so ridiculous. Like I could tell you the hospital I was born in. I mean, it was insane. And so one of my friends I went to high school was like, look, I've known her since she was 15. And you guys clearly don't know anything about Cuban food, and she's from here. And the response was something like she won't be able to give that food away. You and your flatlander friends think you can come to our state. And so the trans person who originally was mad at me told me they could not be friends with me or support my business because, for the same reasons that a Jew cannot be friends with Hitler, or no, Jew cannot be friends with Nazi, is what they said. And someone else told me that I wasn't welcome in the state. So they boycotted me, and they like reduced my business by significantly. So I was like, well, I can fight this PR fight and blah, blah, blah. And like, I mean, I did, seek out support and support of the community, but like the bottom line is that running a restaurant is hard anyway. So, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna have to get another job as a writer. So like, I don't think I can support myself in the business. Like I would have to increase the business, but they really they cut down a lot of business. But then I still, like my best customer, she'd come every weekend and she would get the same dish. And she would give me free things, and I would give her free things, and then she would even talk to me. She wouldn't even speak to me. So, anyways, so that is the story of the Miami Mommy boycott and how I became known among Vermonters as a racist TERF.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. And my first impression is these people sound like children. It sounds like junior high school, mean girl type behavior. And my second impression is, who wants to live in a world like that? Like, I don't want that for my future. I can't live around these people. You,
Got it.
do you come from a social justice or like a feminist background, or kind of had a foot in that world first before this happened?
Yeah. So, when I lived in Miami, I was very, very active as a pro-choice activist. And I had organized 2 different rallies. Like I did at the Torch of Friendship in Miami, a protest against the Alito nomination and the Roberts nomination to Supreme Court because for pro-choice. And like the Alito one actually got pretty big. Well, it was covered by the news and stuff. And I mean, I used to go lobbying for Planned Parenthood in the state of Florida, and I was the president of 3 NOW, National Organization for Women chapters. But I couldn't be the one for Burlington anymore because they saw all of my turfy stuff, and National was calling me like, you're posting this shit, you know. So I don't know. Like, I think now National Organization for Women already had like a battle for its soul, like maybe 5 years ago, and so like the cook kicked out all the old school feminists, and now it's like the woke feminists. So, but if you're more
So
interested in that, I wouldn't mind telling you, but it's up to you, whatever you want me to tell you about.
so there are tensions within feminism itself in relation to
Absolutely.
wokeness. It seems to be dividing everything. Like every group is splitting between a
Yeah.
woke version and a non-woke version.
I think like people have been asking me a question, and they've been asking me the same question over the past few days. When I went to college, I was lucky enough to go while it was still women's studies, not gender studies. And so when you hear these terms such as liberal feminist, radical feminist, Marxist feminist, those are actually academic terms for the schools of feminist thought. And to understand feminism, which is an academic discipline, um, the distinction between each category of feminism is what it views as the source of oppression of women. And so, like, traditionally, liberal feminism thought it was enshrined by law. It had to do with legal equality. And then radical feminism said it was very sex based, and it had to do with culture and the way, like cultural ideas about women and our bodies and things. But it was definitely sex based, and then, there's other sorts of stuff. So, what has happened is, liberal and radical feminists were like this. We're just one force 10 years ago. And then the trans activism showed up one day, and it was like, I mean, not one day, it was like it slowly came along, like, because the gay GLBT movement was very, and the feminist movement were really close together because queer theory came from feminist theory. Like, feminist theory is like the mother of queer theory. But as it progressed, there was a segment of feminists, the radical feminists, who objected to it on the grounds that it was violating a lot of women's rights. And so at first, I was like, why do you guys hate trans people? I don't know what y'all got against them. Like, I couldn't understand it. But I was talking to them, and I feel fortunate that I have an open mind, because I was like, well, I'm just going to listen to them, because what does it hurt you to listen to another's ideas? I mean, are you really that influenceable that you're going to hear an idea and you're going to join their cult? I mean, I always thought that was so stupid. Like, why don't you talk to someone who thinks differently than you? So they raised some points about the trans movement that I was like, you know what, those are really good points. It's really salient. And in my experience in college, I always thought that radical feminism was the branch of feminism that really cared about women. Like, once I was at an NOW meeting, and there was a lady who was emotionally unstable, who really did not like men, and she was a trauma victim of rape, because that's what happens to people. And I think like the sort of liberal feminists, the ones who didn't really get the radical feminist sisterhood, kind of laughed at her, and that lady never came back. And I was like, that's not what feminism should be about. So now what you have in 2021 is a situation where what was called liberal feminism, what used to be about equal rights for women in law, has sort of adopted the platforms for the trans movement, including the sex work platform. Whereas radical feminism, since the 60s, we've always said that we do not like pornography, and we do not like violent sexual exploitation of women. So now the people they were calling TERFs, or they're starting to call themselves gender critical, but they're coming from that radical feminist vein that really cares about women's sexual biology. And then the people we're calling woke are really coming from the liberal feminist side. So it's like an insider's explanation of what the hell's going on, because I'm sure it's, people are very confused by that.
I'd just like
Where do
to
you
say,
see it going? Do you have any thoughts on how it might play out between the different groups?
I think that the real power lies with the trans people who have transitioned and are having a very bad time about it. Like one of my friends, Scott, he had the same thing happen. So I mean, like that Kiara Bell, like that lady from the UK who became a man and had a lot of, those, like, I don't know why they're trying to silence those people, because every time you try and silence somebody, you just make a martyr out of them. So those folks have like the real power in like 10 or 20 years when they've gone through, their young adulthood and middle age with this surgery, and they're gonna start writing and talking. So, it's like there's a bubble that's gonna burst that no one can control, no one can stop it. So it could go the other way. There could be plenty of people who are absolutely happy with their surgery. God bless them. But I think what's going to have to happen is we have to acknowledge when we make progress in society. When, my mother was a brilliant woman and she wanted to be a doctor, but her father told her, you're a girl, so you're not going to go to college, you're going to get married. And that's what she did. Okay, so that is sexism in the most virulent and definable way. Not, and to me, that's sex-based discrimination. That's what sexism is. But sexism is not something like I wore a skirt to the office and they all staring at me. You go, girl. You can like go to the office like wearing, something completely inappropriate or whatever the fuck it is. Or, oh, they didn't use the correct pronoun. Like, I don't want to be known as her, like whatever it is. And it's like, okay, I get it. That's insulting for you, but that's not the same as not being able to go to college. So we need to acknowledge progress, because when we don't, and this goes for all the other spheres of social justice, including, racial justice. I used to be a civil rights activist too. I was in all kinds of crap like that in Miami, because we have people being born, these, call them Zoomers. And when you're born, like you come into the world and it's almost like there's this book and everyone's been reading it, and you don't get to see that. You only see your page. That's what education is. And you tell them what happened before. And they are giving youngest people this very unbalanced sense of what the past and the recent past were like. So you can't, and I think that really affects young men who become like really bitter and angry about it. So I have a lot of friends that are male gamers. You can't really blame them. So like they're being told like things are just as bad for women as they were in like the year 1900, and like they're not. But when you do that, you're gonna create haters who have a legitimate beef with us. So I don't know. So I think we have to, and also with civil rights too, we have to acknowledge progress there, because what happens is you get this rhetoric from woke people, and it just gets more and more intense, and it's like putting battery acid on a paper cut. Like we still have a few little paper cuts out there, but it's not a gaping wound. Like we don't need to act like we still are enslaved or whatever it is. So those are my thoughts. And I also think that the Republican Party is they're recruiting actively people who have splintered from the left. And one of the lessons I learned from a feminist in the 80s is that if you form a voting bloc and you get enough people, then that's how you get politicians to listen to you and adopt you into their platform as part of their political ideology. So it's an opportunity to gain a voice in the two-party system, I suppose. But some people, they might want to go the Democrats. But I personally never voted for a Republican, but I probably will. So that's what
I'm in the same place.
Yeah.
Same place. Neil, you were gonna say something.
I firstly, thanks for telling us your story, Holly. really impressed that you moved from Miami to Vermont and then started a restaurant about something you're passionate about. And hopefully we could have time to explore how you turn your passion into like a successful business.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk for 10 minutes straight.
As much as you like, it's just lovely. It's lovely hearing what you've got to say. You're very articulate, and
thank you.
And of that, and you pointed out the lack of the capacity for those people to listen or have a conversation with you, and then pointed out, you know, the importance of actually listening to different perspectives, and it's a tragedy that you got treated that way. You know, if you're a great chef, it doesn't matter where you come from or what you're cooking. It's about good food, and that should be considered. To me, that is cultural appreciation, not appropriation. So, you know, if you love Cuban food and you're good at cooking Cuban food, then everyone else should be happy to participate in that. And saying that I can't be friends with you because you're friends with someone I don't like, as Jeff said, like, I think I stopped doing that when I was about 8 or 9, maybe 10. But it's just horrific to think that adult people think in such extreme and stupid ways. So I think it's really brave that you've had to live through that crap. And you also spoke about writing projects, so I'll be really interested to hear what else your other ways of turning your creative energy into like productive output, because it sounds like you've got a lot of strength there, and I think a lot of people could learn from that as well.
Well, you know, it comes from a place of Prozac.
But yeah, there's no real question on all that. It was more just a little appreciation, like, go Holly.
Thank you.
But yeah, if at some point we could dive into like how you go about, because to me that's quite a scary concept, would be
starting
to
a business.
Start something. Yeah, starting a business out of something I was passionate about. I really admire anyone that can do that.
Oh, well, they say the number one thing when you're starting a business is come up with something unique that there's demand for, like identify a gap in the market. And that's what I did, is because there was a gap for Cuban food. I could have done Italian and Greek food, and this probably wouldn't have happened. But they have some Italian and Greek places. It's like, oh, well, I might as well go with the other thing I'm good at. So, you know, and you have to make an incorporation. Like, you need a little startup money. You're going to need a registered agent to put together your LLC, and you just have to do research. Like, you have to do research about your competitors, and you have to develop a brand. Like in my professional career, I was a brand writing expert. So you just have to decide, you know, what are your values about, you know, what's your give uniquely that's different than everyone. And, you know, once you get a sense of that, you actually do have to work on your recipes too. So when I was putting together the menu, I was thinking I was just going to sell to people in this neighborhood. And I was like, well, what do people here eat? It's a working class neighborhood. They go over here and they get like sandwiches and chicken fingers, or they go over there and they get like pizza or burger over there. So it's that kind of stuff, like finger food. So the first thing I was thinking is like chicken is having a moment right now. So I was like, what is a good finger food type chicken dish I could develop? And so I was looking at the restaurants Versailles and La Carreta in Miami, which are like big flagship Cuban American restaurants. And I noticed they both had a dish called chicharrón de pollo, which is just chicharrón style chicken, which means crunchy chicken. Like it's mimicking the pork crunchiness. So I started doing research. Like I looked at 3 guys from Miami. I looked at their recipe. I looked at a Dominican recipe, and I just started putting it together. And it was really good. Like I made a recipe that was, mine was deep fried. There's pictures of it on my website with a breading on it. And then it was really good because like I put Dominican oregano in it and dill, so it had like a very specific, almost like a smoky flavor. I can't describe it. But then I tasted it and I was like, okay, well, it needs something else. So in Miami, like 20 years ago, there was this sauce called chop chop sauce. That's basically like a curry mustard sauce that started appearing everywhere. So then I tried putting it on the chicken, and it was delicious. Like, it was so good. And I was like, this is the kind of thing that if you're drunk and it's 2 a.m, you would buy. So I put it on the menu, and it just started selling. Like, people just loved it. So it's like that. Like, when you're when you're starting a business, you have to think about your customers. You have to think about what is selling, and people love finger foods, anything that's convenient and easy. And you have to think about what they want. Now, I will say that I was pleasantly surprised by the palate of Vermonters. I was concerned that they wouldn't want to try something like picadillo that has, like, why are there raisins in my meat, But I was pleasantly surprised. The only thing that it was a little hard to get them to try, I think, was the salmon croquetas, but they're really good. So I don't know. So that's all I really to tell you is find a unique idea, do research on your customers, and then be really good at your customer relations and your customer retention. Like, try and retain them once you have them.
This
Wow.
is excellent advice, and my mouth is watering thinking about the chicken as well. Like,
Yeah, it's lunchtime for me. Yeah,
where people really won't care. They just want to eat the chicken.
yeah.
You can see on the website if you want to look at pictures of it. I could show you.
Thank you. I will. I'll never dive
Sure.
in whilst Nemo chats. I'm gonna have a look. Thank you.
Yeah. Man,
Oh.
just listening to your process, Holly, like I can tell by the way you describe the actions you took and kind of the creativity that you're very self-directed. That stood out to me, and I think that is a quality that's being lost right now with, say, younger generations. I mean, I'm 26, so I guess most people around me that are remotely close to my age, they're not very self-directed at all, and I really think it's a lack of creativity. It also seems like there's this real disconnect between cause and effect, and I see that in social justice, that people just ignore cause and effect and real world things, and they'll say some statements and superimpose it over whatever's happening, and it just doesn't make any sense, but they're so used to this different way of thinking that doesn't connect to reality. But I mean, to kind of look at the way that you were describing your process, I felt almost empowered just listening to it, because when, or at least like really excited and motivated, when I found that when a person knows what they're doing and they are self-directed, they have that sense of creativity and an understanding of economics and psychology, what people want, behavior and all that, that it's what they're doing, what they say is simple and it's easy to understand. But by the time they've gotten there, they've gone through a whole journey. And so I have this phrase I came up with a while ago. I haven't used it in a while. Let me see if I can remember it. It's beginners are rough, professionals are complex, masters are simple. And that's kind of, there's a lot of similarities in the way that you seem to relate to your business to like how I relate to music, which is something that I've been composing and playing music for many years now, most of my life. So all those qualities, I'm really hoping that we can highlight those qualities in the people that we're meeting and bring it out and connect over it and actually like do activities together. And that would be perfect. And Jeff seems really excited as I'm talking about this.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about our self-employment project that we're already starting to work on in the Critical Crossroads community. So this ties right into it. So education and employment are the two big pieces that I'm noticing people are showing up in the community with great needs for. So anything that can address those two areas right now, I think will help.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on something that you were saying, Nemo. One of the subjects that really frosts my cookies is the lack of professionalism that people have in any professional space anymore. Like, people aren't professionals. And when I was coming up, there was not, because I started out as like a legal secretary, and then I worked in an office at a cruise line, and I got promoted twice to be a writer, finally. And but that was like in the 2000s, and it's like even then, professionalism was kind of becoming a lost art. But luckily, I had a mentor who taught me how to be professional. And like I noticed, they don't teach professionalism in schools. Like I wish they would have taught it to me in college, and it's only gotten worse. And it's just, it's stuff like that. Like I don't know.
Holly,
Like
I have a
there was
question.
someone. Go ahead.
What do you mean by professionalism? Because that's kind of a charged word for me coming from the backgrounds that I come from. So I just want to make sure
Yes.
we're talking
What
about the same
background?
thing.
Like what background do you mean?
Well, it's used a lot against autistic people. It's used against
It is?
people from certain cultures that if professional is a white standard of etiquette and behavior, it's used against people that come from less white cultures. So when you say professionalism, I just want to make sure that I'm imagining the same thing in my head that you are.
Well, I worked in IBM for several years, so that is the most buttoned down corporation you can meet. But what I mean by professionalism is like when you go into work, you're supposed to go there to work, and it's hard, it's rough, but you really have to put your emotional baggage at the door. And when you go in there, you have to be really objective, and you have to focus on your work. And like when you deal with other people, you have to really try not to get emotionally too excited or worked up about things. Like you try to maintain like an even keel and a calm. Professionalism is also about being detail orientated by documenting your work and documenting things very closely. It's about being organized. Professionalism is, about like being appropriate. Like those kind of things. Like, how many people like show up to a meeting with an agenda? It's like stuff like that. So like that's what I mean when I think that professionalism is being lost.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
I'm
there's
not
a
very
sense-
professional either. I'm one of those people. It's
Oh.
lost. I do good work. I'm just not professional, and I never will be. So
Um,
I just want you to know there's a whole population out there that are capable and functional. We're just not going to ever meet the standard called professionalism.
Okay.
That's the only point I want to make.
I would
This is-
challenge that. I would challenge that, Jeff, though, because what I'm also hearing from Holly is about accountability and responsibility to the kind of commitments you say you're going to do. And I'd say in that respect, Jeff, you live up to the standard very
Well,
high.
some of the stuff she mentioned, I do. I'm thinking, well, yeah, I already do all that stuff. But then some of the stuff she mentioned, I'm like, I will never be able to meet that standard ever. I already know that. And so it was kind of a mix of some of it is so basic, I think I already do it. I consider myself professional as long as professional is not how you appear or come across or how overly organized or detail oriented you are. But if it's you do quality work, you treat people fairly, you meet your commitments, you're on time, you're reliable, I'm professional. I just may not appear or act or talk professional.
Well, I think that's also to do with the industries that people work in as well. So was that experience you just described there, Holly, mainly from your IBM experience, or is that, I mean, certainly when customer facing, I can see how very important a lot of that is as well. But there are certainly other industries where some of those qualities wouldn't necessarily be needed. So I think professionalism is quite broad and also quite specific to whatever it is that you're working in as well.
Yeah. Well, I may be a little old fashioned, but I hope that didn't seem offensive to you.
Oh no.
No. Far from
but
it.
like, for example, okay,
no, you're fine. And I think, oh, go ahead.
Okay, I was working for NCL, and there was a company event, and there was a party on a ship, and there was a lady where the ensemble she was wearing, it was like a tight dress, but it had all these cuts in it, like it was all torn up like this and stuff. And it's like something like that. Like, I don't think it's professional to wear something like that to a company function. So maybe I'm old fashioned, but I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. This is a really, honestly, that one word can open up a giant can of worms because I think it is used to mean different things that
Probably.
that what I think would, like, for people like say me and Jeff, I think we have some similarities here that depending on how people use that term, it can mean drastically different reactions from us.
Probably.
I
Yeah.
my experience with that concept is very bizarre and disorienting because it's in some of my work environments, it's been used as a weapon. And so
Really?
often, like, the nasty use of it is often equated to politeness with like a capital P politeness. We're going to use this to manipulate and silence
You mean like
people.
passive aggressive politeness?
Yeah, well, probably. Yeah, just like really manipulative and it's really fake and you can, and also like I
It's not really
I've
professional.
survived a social justice cult. Like I don't label every
Oh.
social justice group I've been in as a cult, but and I've talked about this plenty of times, but I was in youth advocacy and mentorship, which as a profession, I think is inherently more casual. And there's some flexibility and there's cultural development and shifting and change because we're bridging the gaps to younger generations. And there's some old fashioned aspects of workplace culture that I think have stagnated and are really in opposition to people's needs. And it really doesn't make any sense. Like, I had a lady on the phone in an interview recently that thought I hadn't been at workplaces for very long and I tended to change jobs. There's a little bit of truth to that. I've done some temp work and I've had instability from jobs being sabotaging, but I've also been at a couple of jobs on my resume for 1.5 or 2 years. And I'm 26 and I've had a career for like 7 years. Okay.
That's
What do they want me
awesome.
to do? Stay?
Congratulations.
Yeah, like what? Like, does this lady want me to stay at the first zoo amusement park I worked at for the next 5 years? I wouldn't have a career if I stayed there forever. So people have these weird concepts that don't make sense, and they're very antagonistic and disempowering to younger employees that are
Yeah.
trying to help themselves. But in my youth work, there is this kind of casualness, and part of it is relatability. You just want to be kind of laid back and actually start to build bridges across age groups that are often segregated. And a lot of these younger people have been abused by parents or you name it, and so they tend to be standoffish and skeptical. So you can't walk in, I'm not going to be wearing top button everywhere I go in those environments. And yet, whenever professionalism was referenced in that environment, it was often used as a weapon to push social justice in a way that plays this sort of legalistic liability game. And so
But you can do that with anything. I mean, like Holly's experience of being from Italian Greek background, but capable of cooking food from a Cuban background, having grown up with it, became weaponized against her. Professionalism was weaponized against you. And anyone who's has that motivation within them to either undermine or harm others could weaponize pretty much anything. So I think the context within which you use a word is really important. So what would be professional in a casual environment would be understanding it's a casual environment.
Yeah.
And representing yourself in that way. What would be professional in a customer serving environment is putting your emotions at the door and greeting and engaging with whoever is there, however they present. And when I was working at JP Morgan, the professionalism there was actually buying your shirts from the right shop. They even cared what brand your shirt and tie was. So and that was
just stupid. That's
right. Okay. So, and that shows us how strangely contextual these things really are. And what would be weaponized where I used to work would be not wearing the right tie, or not wearing the right shirts, or even buying books.
Okay, but there's a difference between like an office dress code and like a culture of like what kind of tie is popular. I mean,
in London, you can tell what type of job people do by their shoes.
Are you serious?
Like,
oh my God.
Yeah. But this is part of our culture. So this is very different from US culture, and this is part of UK culture. Whereas if you've got brown loafers with tassels on, then you probably work in a very specific part of asset management. But if you wear a double-breasted suit, then you probably work in legal.
I would
Like,
just address me.
so
I need to go
there's all of
animals.
these
Right though.
tiny cues
Right
that
though.
people use within specific areas to signal to one another what they do, and then professionalism essentially gets framed around what's the appropriate things to do to send the right signals within the context of what you're doing, which can be vastly different depending on what you're doing. When I worked in healthcare with people with dementia, there's no way I would turn up in a suit and tie. They would think I'm clinical and not want to talk to me. I turn up in my scruffiest Vans and slightly torn jeans and t-shirt, and then I looked like their grandson, and that was great. So it is about
Yeah.
contextualizing how you are to the experience that you're delivering, or what's expected from the people that you're interacting with. But it's a shame to hear professionalism weaponized. It's also a shame to hear that within its context, it's falling behind in certain areas as well.
Well, thank you for sharing your experiences, because I never really heard that side of it. So
But I also
Bizarre
think
world.
that your like the value behind it that you hold, your sense that there should be a certain quality to people's work or a certain conscientiousness
Yeah,
about the work you do. I totally agree with that and think all of that's valuable. So I think the place you're talking from, we all are coming from that same place. And I
Yeah.
think that
I
that
would
is
say it was about being
a positive
responsible.
value to hold about work.
Oh
Like
yeah,
for
yeah.
me, like if somebody leaves my desk, I want to know that it's high quality. It's not leaving until it's high quality. And my food was the same thing. I tasted everything.
Yep.
You know, like all of my professional skills as a creative writer or a writer transferred directly into working with people to make food they like to eat. And a lot of things that I think of when I think of professionalism is you just be good at your game, whatever it is. You know, if I tell you I'm here to advise you about branding, and I'm your consultant, then I better know a whole bunch of damn shit about branding and be able to deliver. Like the proof should be there that you can see it in my work. Like that's what I feel is like, because you have a responsibility. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like that's really kind of what it boils down to. Professionalism is like for me, it's like having a sense of pride in your work and being responsible for it. So
Yes. This,
I
oh man, I'm having like the best revelation right now. My brain is tingling. Okay. Jeff and I have talked about, and I'm sure Neil as well. But Jeff's one of the first people to bring this up to me that where it really stuck in my brain. It's been a while ago. But this phrase, internal locus of control versus external locus of control, which really relates to self-determination. That's my baby. That's like my favorite philosophy of all time. And really, I think that the difference in this, maybe the positive definitions or related concepts under professionalism versus kind of the more negative dysfunctional forms really is intrinsic versus extrinsic. And so, like Holly, what you're describing is, to me, it sounds like maturity, responsibility. And so it's these qualities of actually being able to do things that have a real impact in the world that are high quality. It's like it's almost like taking a risk in a way. It's taking responsibility and risk where, like, this is the real world. I need to be able to be wise enough, smart enough, responsible enough to carry this burden, and because it's going to have a real outcome. And if I screw it up, then it's going to be obvious and it's going to come back to bite me. But with a lot of the like really negative professionalism, the really dysfunctional kind that I've experienced, it's definitely more external. It's not used to take responsibility. It's used to try and manipulate or control other people. And so it's used as this tool of trying to manipulate the world outside of yourself.
I see what you're saying. I think when you said the word maturity, that was also really a pretty key and important value. But yeah, I can see what you mean. Like people are just kind of using that as like another method of
it,
instilling conformity.
it's kind of like what the woke do with the language and the pronoun. Like you have to fall into this very narrow etiquette, or you get ostracized or shunned. And some workplaces can do the same thing. I've been told several times, I do good work. All I need is a little bit of polish. We just need to polish you up. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I'm Cajun, I'm autistic. What do you need to polish? If I do good work, leave me alone and let me do my good work. What do you need to polish? There seems something classist or ethnocentric about that, and so I don't never know what they're talking about. But it's that kind of stuff that can be
Well,
used against people.
sorry, I had to get the dog out. I don't know. I mean, if I were you, I would just ask, can you please clarify your feedback? Can you be
I don't even give them
specific?
an inch.
Oh.
If they
Well, if it
think
was
I
me,
need to be
I
polished,
would
I'm
say,
probably
can
in
you
the
give
wrong
me
room.
specific details of what you're talking about?
I don't
So
know.
that might help.
Jeff, I think Jeff should see like Holly's backlog. Holly, you showed me your backlog. You have this like link with this password protected. It's about with a bunch of screenshots and kind of quotes from
Yeah.
from the conversations from all the people that were coming after you. And I would just laugh so much seeing Jeff's reaction because me and him are very disagreeable,
Mhm.
and we just don't really tend to care at all about trying to people please whatsoever. And when I looked at like your backlog of how you responded to pretty much everyone that was coming after you, it's like they were on fire. They were so miserable. It's like they were lemon juice concentrate, just sour. They're just miserable people. And it
Yeah.
was just ridiculous. They wanted you to be the villain. I recognize that so well from my own experiences. The more you didn't actively play the role of the villain, the more angry they were about it because it was ruining their
Right.
plans. But like
Right.
your responses were so, I don't want to say cordial, but just so kind. It
Thank
was
you.
it was it's probably more than I would ever do. That's not my style at all. Like you're just I don't know. I don't even know. It was a very distinct style. Like I don't think it was fake. I
Mhm.
don't think it was manipulative, but it was just very kind. It was like you were
Thank you.
just not taking the bait in starting a fight, but
Thank
you also
you.
weren't necessarily blunt. You were just kind of going, I maybe just like going with the flow. And I'm actually not terribly surprised that enraged them more. It's almost like you were literally, this is the phrase, you were literally killing them with kindness.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I think that just like drove people crazy because it was like they were just saying, "Fuck you! You're evil. You're this evil turf. Get out of this town. You don't belong here." And then you're just like, "I'm sorry you feel that way. Thank you." And they're just like, "No, you're supposed to
Yeah,
fight with me. Now you make me look bad."
Yeah. Well,
well, they're warriors.
I linked the thing in the chat where you could see, like I linked the URL and the
It's
password.
wanting a password. It says
Huh?
password. It
The
says
password
password.
is there. I just
Oh,
put it for you guys in the chat.
oh,
Do you see
okay.
it?
Let me take a
Not
look.
all, not
I'm
all
also
paid.
noticing that we're at about an hour, and we usually invite anybody from the audience that wants to come on and participate and join the discussion. So you can either interact in the comments section if you have questions for Holly or any of us, or
There
you
is the
can hop on the
comments.
Zoom if you want the link. Just let us know. And in the meantime, we can keep talking.
I was gonna tell you something though. When you specifically said, "I'm sorry you feel that way," I
Who, me?
want you to know. No, no, I'm talking to Nemo. Excuse
Oh,
me. I wanted to reply to Nemo's comment. And you're saying when I said, um, "I'm sorry you feel that way." I'm sorry I feel that way is professional language. It is something I learned, a way I learned of speaking to people when I was in customer relations at Norwegian Cruise Line. And so, I was like 23 or something, and I had these people calling me on the phone, and they were yelling at me because they hated their cruise or something happened. And I'm like, I didn't mess up your cruise, but like I was paid to deal with them and talk to them. And so like that's how I learned how to talk to people like that, you know. And that's an example of what actually I do mean by professionalism. Is like somebody comes at you up here at like a level 10, and you just calmly and coolly just, okay, blah blah blah. So, and I also wanted to say that like you can read all my responses to them and all the things they said to me, but when I spoke with them, I consciously thought in my mind that I was going to just talk to them and assert myself, but also just use some other listening skills, and I wasn't going to engage with them. Like I wasn't going to let it escalate. And so you're right. When you do that, um, it, like when another person has no emotional control and they say that you have emotional self-control, it's like frustrating to them. Like when somebody shouts, they're shouting because they think you're bigger than them and they're trying to claim back some power. But if you just keep it down, like you're not acknowledging it, and then the person starts to feel out of control, and they don't like that. They don't like it if you make them look like they're the one out of control. And I feel lastly that, if I say that I'm a professional writer and I say I'm a professional PR specialist and I offer those services to other people, then I feel I should damn well be able to exemplify those skills. So I got myself into this corner, and really I should never have been in the corner to begin with, but I was. So I was like, well, I'm going to get out of it, using the skill set that I have purported to be the correct set of skills. So that's why I responded in the manner that I did.
Yeah,
I'm reading it now. This is so impressive, Holly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you do exemplify the things that you've just described in terms of not only professionalism, but actually being very human and compassionate. The stuff that was written is just like, I guess, out of left field is an expression you guys use. To me, it was just like, where the hell did that come from? That is just utter non-context madness. And then
don't
your
forget
response
to connect with people.
Sorry,
definitely connect with people, because like a lot of the problem that we're having right now is we're dealing with social media, we're dealing with text, and whenever you have text, you don't have inflection, you don't have tone, so a lot of the details of verbal communication are lost. So people read a sentence and they project onto it whatever their emotional state is. So and I've done it plenty of times. Like I thought someone was being sarcastic to me, but they're like, no, you just read that, and and it's just one of the kind of technical mistakes that have led to this kind of bad place where I think we are. So I think it's important to connect with people and speak with them in a compassionate way. And if you show a person, you're trying to hurt me, but I'm being compassionate to you, other people are gonna see that. And when I was writing these responses, I was like, I'm going to do this so that other people can look and compare my behavior and their behavior and form a judgment. And so I think that in that regard, some of the trans rights activists, they're not helping trans people by behaving in this manner. So maybe they should reconsider what they would like to do if they really would like to help some trans people, because I don't think that behavior is helping them.
Yeah.
Do you feel that your creative writing and your writing skills, you've spoken about it a few times today, do you think that was something that you could draw upon in this situation? Because it's obviously highly emotional as well, but your response is very measured and very clear and remains very centered and calm, which speaks to great professionalism. But I'm also curious as to whether you feel that your writing skills and your talent and creativity as a writer help you through this situation.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, that's very kind of you and very flattering for you to say. I don't know. I just thank God, and I thank the goddess. I don't know why they put me on this path, but they gave me a set of skills because they want me to do something with them in life. So, I just try to, I don't know, use whatever gifts I was given in a humble and appreciative way, and hopefully in a good way. So, like sometimes I feel like when I would cook something really dope, I would be like, I didn't do this alone today. Like my mother is here with me today and she did this, because like I couldn't do this myself, like because it was so good. So, I just feel like, I don't know, you can have any ideology you want. You can say, I believe this, and it doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is how you act. And if you act appropriately, then other people are going to care about your ideology and feel that it has some significance to it. That's what I think. Is just, kind of try to live by what you think is right and try to exemplify them. And I try to ask God to tell me the difference between right and wrong, because sometimes it's hard to know. So
And what are you doing with your creative writing at the moment? Is that something that's you're diving into as you?
yeah, I so I'm not really gonna do the food thing. Oh, excuse me. um, because it's not really profitable, so I have to get a real job. But I started doing a really good creative project. Like I started dramatizing what happened to me and like taking the story of what's happening and I'm putting it into fiction. And it's a project's going really well. So I'm writing in a universe, a dystopia where everyone has a social credit score, and your social credit kind of determines what you're allowed to do and go in life, as we know is real. Because I feel that rating a business 1 to 5 stars, giving people the opportunity, is a soft social credit score, which is currently implemented because I have experienced it. And it's a soft version because it's indirect. So I had people who had a personal, like a social credit store type of beef with me, and they attributed it to my restaurant, and then the restaurant started to go down. So it's like, I just really want to write about this. And but to me, I'm very, very inspired by Charlie Booker's episode of Black Mirror entitled Nosedive, and also by 1984. But when I look at Mr. Booker's interpretation of this issue, I just want it to be more about politics. Like the universe I'm writing in is more about expressing the correct political opinions. So yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be about a character who falls and rises and falls. So I think it's just going pretty well. I'm pretty excited about it. I wish I could do like a Kickstarter so I could just, like
Good.
really have at it and get it done, But it's going well.
Let us know how we could help. You might be able to, because we're starting some kind of self-employed. Like we're interested in people that are making income.
I mean, you
on their
could,
own
if you're
somehow.
interested, you could check it out. Like I actually have some copy that people can check out here.
Yeah, and Nemo might want to talk about the project he's starting. We're a literary magazine for.
Oh,
Yeah, this I threw out the idea, and we're kind of just getting off the ground to see kind of where it could go. Starting a kind of underground counterculture magazine and taking all kinds of submissions, and it's not explicitly focused on social justice, but it's just going to be, it's this cool slice of culture from people that are in these groups all over the place, and then people can get exposed to it. And so, Holly, maybe if you ever wanted to submit something as we start to get off the ground here, maybe like a section of something you've written, or do something totally new or whatever, we have that opportunity. And
I can't promise, because if I promise, it won't happen. But I will try.
Sure.
Let's put it that way. Every time I say I will definitely write a thing, I never write a thing, but I'll try.
Yeah,
But I put the link that you guys can like check out a not a chapter, like a scene, so you can kind of see.
I'm looking at. Do you want us to put the link in the podcast we posted when we put all our other links for the viewers?
I mean, if they want to check it out, that's cool. I mean, that's just like a first draft of a scene that I think is presentable to the public. It's at a place where
I'm glancing at it now. It's really good.
Like it has the basic components to it. So yeah, I mean,
I love the fact it starts out with an avocado as well. The the cooking theme still lives through. That's I noticed that straight away. That it starts with an avocado. That is the theme of cooking is in that very first paragraph of what you've written there as well. But
yeah, I wanted something kind of trendy. Avocados are the trendy food,
Yeah.
I think it's a really great idea to put that energy into the project and to take the experience and create from the experience that you've had.
Right. Well, I mean, the art is the first therapy that humanity ever had. And literature was the first therapy. I mean, that's what we're really supposed to do.
Storytelling.
take what's in our hearts and express it. I mean, that's what, therapy really was for human beings before we had therapists.
Yeah.
So, and when you
I've
put information into a story form, actually, researchers have learned that human brains evolved with stories
Yep.
because they were advantageous. It was a way of receiving information from someone else that was applicable to one's life. So, I suppose bees tell each other stories about where honey is, but humans tell each other stories about the best way to live. That's the goal of literature. So,
I read that like 2 days ago in a book I happened to be reading, pretty much not paraphrased, but exactly the same particular idea about the importance of story and narrative, and what we learn about how to live through those stories, and how much easier it is for us to kind of absorb the spirit and meaning of something through narrative than it is through instructional rule. So how much more depth with learning we get through that process. So it's so much fun when those sort of synchronicities appear in life, that you tell the same sort of piece of information like 48 hours after I've read it in a completely different context. So that just tells me that I need to pay attention to that. That's obviously important for me right now in my life, is to know about this. So
there's an excellent book by a writer named Lisa Cron that's called Wired for Story. Her name is Lisa Cron. You can hear it on Audible, but she talks about that, like story and evolutionary neural pathways of how it's a way to receive information. It's really interesting. It's a really good book. So if you're interested in that kind of thing,
wow.
read it.
I've been writing something right now kind of spontaneously that I guess is kind of this weird creative philosophical thing. It's very bizarre. It's like, should I go down the rabbit hole? But I called this thing for now Real Things Have Shadows. And the whole idea is I have this suggestion about some of the reasons that a lot of people are struggling right now, and it seems like one way we can look at our issues is that it's this mental health and trauma and social epidemic. And so it's like a lot of people are just going harebrained crazy, if you want to describe it that way. And one of my suggestions is that people are suffering what is unreal, so that you could almost like trace back and connect and point out and kind of map it out and see that the people that are more grounded and able to maintain some sanity, sense of foundation in life, are dealing with real things more. And the two ways I'm starting to kind of play with that to measure it is that real things are physical and they're social. If you think of like hunter-gatherer tribes, when life was way simpler, or even agricultural societies, basically all the skills we needed, the lives we lived, we were doing things physically all day with like our hands. We built skills that way. And it just seems like we've gotten so carried away from that. I mean, the original Matrix movie came out in 1999, and it was already describing the internet as this virtual world that people are trapped in that's not real. So I'm starting to play around with that. What is real versus unreal? And it's a little bit philosophical and, I don't know,
It's
nonfiction.
Hegelian.
What?
It's Hegelian. Like
Isn't that one of the postmodern guys that kind of led us to the whole postmodern critical theory stuff?
He was before the postmodern.
He was 18th century, probably a precursor to some of the postmodern thought.
Yeah, I listened to some
Hegel
James
was
Lindsay
saying
stuff.
he was saying that ideas are reality. And I feel like there's a lot of gold in what Hegel says, but we have people who take it to illogical extremes. But in America, we can never take a balanced approach with things. We can never take a moderate approach. We always want to go 120 miles an hour into one direction, and that's where we lead to error, I think. And I think that's the same thing with Hegel and the concept that ideas are reality. Like, we can't obviously ignore material realities, but certainly with the internet, it shows you how a world of ideas is something we still experience, but it's certainly not tangible, and yet it's
Yeah.
real. So like there's the reality of ideas that exist in people's minds. I think that's
Mhm.
true,
Yeah, it's
and
Well,
that's the problem.
mhm.
we're human, and we have human brains, and human brains are story brains, and there's a mental reality that comes along with being human. And I think with technology and the machine age kind of outpacing our humanity, we might be losing sight of that or risk losing that. But I think the more we can design things for our human brains instead of designing things as though we're machines that can adapt to this mechanistic design, I think it's be more effective as a species, and it'll be a lot kinder on ourselves too if we work with our natural tendencies. And,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I think in that sense there is a mental reality. Like reality is mental, our human reality anyway is mental for the most part.
Yeah, I one of the themes I emphasized was that also another aspect to me of people that maintain a sense and connection to reality, or that whatever worlds they're participating in, the virtual, mental, more physical, and etc., that their worlds are somewhat connected. I've noticed that it's become more exaggerated and extreme how people are in different bubbles,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to deal with. So like and even in my work as like a youth mentor, I have to go all over the place, and a lot of it's mobile work, and I go into completely different environments with different people, and you can just tell that each person has spent so much time in their own bubble, and they get smaller and smaller and more individualized, that they're not really getting the exposure and the
Right.
practice and the daily experience of actually connecting in groups. So there's just this total lack of cohesion, and I don't think people even realize all the ways that their experience and their own story of the world is totally different from each other. So it
Yeah.
gets really disparate. And in my research, it's a theme that's come up again and again. If you want to like build groups, community or a new organization, or like do youth mentorship or whatever it might be, training for jobs, education, when you want to start that group and build the foundation, you have to focus on designing the environment that is conducive to people's needs, that makes it less authoritarian because you're focusing on the environment rather than solely on people's behavior. And then you also want to encourage people to come together and do a physical activity that is shared. So it's here
Yeah.
and present right now. It's a
Yeah.
physical activity. People are sharing it. So there is similarities in experience. And through that physicality, it actually can be healing.
Yes.
And food. That's the third ingredient. Really good food. And you probably
Yeah.
know that.
That food is physical. Like, it's in our hands. It tastes delicious. We digest it. It's great. It's classic.
It's also fundamental to all of us, no matter where we are, what tribe we're from, or think we're from, or want to be part of. Um, like food is the great bringer together of things. I've lived in countries where I couldn't speak the language, didn't understand the culture, couldn't read the writing, but people would offer me food, and we'd better sit down and smile, and then the because everyone needs to eat, right? And everyone,
Yeah.
almost everyone, enjoys eating too. And it's, to me, it's probably like the most fundamental. Food, sleep, there's some real basics in life. Breathing, there are real basics in life, but food is something that we can share.
Yeah.
So that's the connector, I think, for at a very, very deep and fundamental and important level. So yeah, I
I
really agree with
definitely,
you.
I definitely got this whole thing with wanting to feed people from my mother, like, because that's what she used to do. And there is a certain sense of satisfaction in being nurturing toward another person, It's like I always get satisfaction from creating something beautiful, and then, other people are going to enjoy it, it just makes you feel good, like you've created something worth creating. So it's very
Yeah.
satisfying, I think.
Yeah. It's weird how this came full circle in unexpected ways. Like, it's like we're back to the Miami Mammy story. Because it just shows like a lot of, the people that were coming after you, to me, are good examples of people who are suffering the unreal. This
Right.
whole debacle
Right.
as far as I could tell, so much of it took place online. And then earlier, Holly, when you mentioned that over text, there's a lack of that body language and intonation, and so there's just this. It's like this really limited way of interacting that is, in a lot of ways, feels less real, because what is real about it is, I mean, what people are on their computers, so we're interacting through this interface. We're not, and even right now, it's maybe as close as we could get to being in person, but still there's this interface, and it really changes things. And so I've noticed spending a lot of time on like this podcast and online, that when I'm on video interacting with people, I am experiencing it feels like I'm experiencing this strange reality that is somehow inside of whatever the hell this is. It's like this hybrid of this. It's like in the Zoom or something. I'm feeling that. And then I like look around, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm in my bedroom. So it's like switching between realities. And I swear there is something to this where people are going crazy, because I mean, for God's sakes, you're trying your best as like being this person that's offering this delicious food that could potentially bring people together in a physical place and actually give that sense of sanity, that foundation, like, hey, we still have this as our rock when we're going through these hard times. But a lot of people instead decided just to stay in their minds, in these stories in their minds, that like throughout this podcast, those stories literally haven't even mattered to me. There's things that I don't find that important. It didn't get in the way of this episode or this discussion at all. It's like a total, it's a difference in how you prioritize your values, I think, is what it really comes down to.
Well, I think the idea of, we're talking about reality, is really important, particularly to identity politics. And I think that the people who hate me, who have never met me, hate an idea of me. Like, they have an idea of who I am or who I must be, and that's what they hate. And I think that identity culture is almost platonic, because maybe the actual person doesn't matter so much as the idea of the person. Like, they're always coming up with like categories of imaginary people that are probably, like 0.1% of the population. But then they meet an actual person who is from a completely integrated culture such as Miami. And and it's like, I just don't fit inside of their thing. Like, I have people who tell me I'm white. I have people who tell me I'm not white. I have people who tell me I'm Latino. You're telling me, oh, you're not Latin. You're trying to appropriate our culture. Like, I've never met people who were so interested in my race until I came here. It's crazy. I mean, and it's, to me, it's like eugenic shit. Like, why would you racially hair split over people? But I don't know, dude. Like, people ask me, I'm just gonna tell them I'm Mediterranean, so I don't even know what to say anymore. So, but I never lied about who I am.
It's pretty wacky. Honestly, Holly, when you were talking that last minute or so, you sounded so much like Jeff to me. And it occurred to me, Florida's south, Vermont is north. Jeff is from Louisiana, and he moved to Seattle. So it really, and I'm from Minnesota, and I've spent most of my time here. And
Minnesota, eh?
oh God, I don't know any real person that talks like the exaggerated Minnesota accent. I've heard that from like the Fargo movie. Yeah, I don't hear.
I heard it though. I've heard it like once I went to Minneapolis for some reason, and when I was in public shopping, like I heard these two ladies like, "Oh, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. How's Steve? Oh, he's good. Oh, you bitch!" Like, I heard it. Like, I heard the accent from Fargo in the wild, and it was awesome.
That is crazy. I don't think
cool.
I've ever heard it. I think I've heard one of my friends does it on purpose. He tries to do it on purpose, and I'm like, you keep doing that. You're gonna get stuck that way, and people are gonna think it's real.
Isn't it like some variant of like Nordic or like Swedish?
Yeah, Swedish.
No, we're Southern Canadians.
English.
We're Southern Canadians.
It's definitely
we're Northern Caribbean. That explains it.
Yeah.
Scandinavian inflex, definitely. The Swedes are very softly spoken and have those same sort of spacing in sound. But
Yeah.
Yeah, Swedish is an interesting language.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Swedish. I can speak a bit of Danish, which is
Oh,
Danish
wow.
and Norwegian are quite similar.
Mm.
And because English is got a lot of Danish in, at least British English does anyway. Because they occupied like half the country for about half a millennia. So we are probably about a third of our languages. And I've been got Danish on my grandparents' side as well. I've seen Fargo, and that's what I thought everyone spoke like from Minnesota too. But it's definitely the Swedish, just the Swedish mob Nemo, which you don't hang out with. That's all it is.
Yep.
But I was
Yeah.
thinking about what you were saying about the way that the internet or other sort of audiovisual technologies as means of communication, how they create some kind of real, not real boundary. And prior to these technologies being available to us, war photography has been something that's gone on for a very long time. And
What
I've
is it?
seen some war photography. So photography
war
taking place in war zones, yeah. And I've seen some photographers be interviewed from people from the 70s through to the 90s about how they were able to do what they did because they saw such disturbing things. And they all said the same thing, that the moment you put the camera between you and the subject of your photography, it disassociates you enough to be able to not experience what's really happening. And so I think we have a kind of hyper-real version of that in having audio visual technology that allows us to see each other move and communicate. But I'm quite convinced also that despite how real it feels, it does also separate us in a way that's very hard for us to kind of put a finger on or understand. So I've seen a lot more expression of aggression and strange sort of behaviors through technologies, and then in real life it seems to be dampened down, at least from my experience. It's dampened down quite considerably, and maybe when we're actually in the presence of another human being, something else that isn't present right now comes alive for us in the interaction.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
I met my first Zoom person, somebody from the network, actually the community, in person last week. It's a huge difference. I've been Zooming with this person for probably months by now, and meeting in person, it was night and day difference. Like the interaction, it wasn't even like it was the same person, just a little bit different. The interaction on Zoom is a completely different quality than the interaction in person. You almost couldn't even compare the two.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and think
Well,
about.
do y'all feel like? Oh, go ahead.
No, I just think, and just that distinction between what you get from physical interaction. Think about how much of that is lost during the pandemic and people not being able to talk in person. So I think that also really contributes to people's isolation and alienation. And when you are alienated, you start to pick up some crazy ideas.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it gets really,
for
really
mental
tough.
health.
Yeah,
It does.
it's really
You're
tough
right.
to deal with.
Well,
There's a lack
come
of
hang out
empathy.
with us if you're dealing with that. We're out here.
That's right. Yeah, we're very slowly and patiently, but we're growing this like little section of the counterculture.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's going to be really cool. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this magazine, because I think that part of the reason that, we've had some ideas and different projects and experiments kind of come up since, me and Jeff have been interacting and Neil's been kind of doing his thing. And I think one of the challenges that made it hard is that so much of it is virtual and intangible, and it's widespread internationally across many different locations. But if we do this magazine, then all of a sudden it can bring a bunch of our existing things we want to do into this tangible physical form that then it can be distributed in physical places, like people's different local areas, where I am, where Jeff is, where Neil is, whoever, and all of a sudden that's like this little, it's like a physical gateway where, like, Jeff is a certified peer counselor, and we have a lot of involvement from, say, therapists and psychologists, and Neil's in psychology. And so, like, just imagine if somebody encounters this little counterculture magazine thing, and they're surrounded by social justice crap, and all of a sudden there's this window into, hey, you're not alone. You don't have to go through this alone anymore. And they can actually contact us and then start to get an experience of our world. That would
That's
just
really
be
cool.
radical.
That's a really cool project idea. But you're right. I mean, I think the best way, if there's something in the world, an ideology or a culture that you really don't like, you really think is wrong, probably one of the best ways to go about dealing with it is not just to attack it and say it's wrong, but to create something that's an alternative.
That's what I had been
that's what you're doing.
saying from the
Right,
start.
that's what you're doing, is you're making a different culture, like a whole different set of experiences, different lexicon, and a different set of symbology for people to communicate with. So I think that I mean, that culture building too is, it's an artistic process. Like, artists are the ones that build culture. So I think that's a really cool project. Like, it would be kind of cool if you printed it out and had like zines or something, like in the 90s.
Oh yes,
un
memento.
That's kind of cool.
We need artists. Artists are our creative problem solvers, and we need them at this time more than any other time right now. So calling all artists.
Look at that.
That's your actual book? I saw the web version, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, this is the physical print copy of my Youth Independence Guide. I think it's backwards, so you can't really read it on camera. But I don't know how to fix that. But you don't necessarily need to read it. But like, so basically, it's 8.5 by 11, and you just print out the whole thing. It automatically makes itself double-sided, and it prints out like this, just like a little stack. You fold it in half, you staple or you glue, and presto changeo. And I've been making this since 2015. And all the colors are pastel, and the blacks are technically very dark gray, so I guess I'm a presser. I'm pressing the black ink on the page. But basically, you save a lot of ink by using lighter colors. So I have this pretty much down pat.
True.
And so I think I can use that skill. It only costs 36 cents to print each one of these. So like, we can kind of play with that format for our magazine. I'm just really excited about the potential it has.
That's really cool. I think you've really got your packaging down in a very repeatable process. It's really nice. It looks very
fantastic. We could use your brand marketing and also your kind of guerrilla warfare tactics of being professional as a restaurant owner in the midst of a war zone.
I would tell you, if they were going to come into my house and protest, I would use my guerrilla tactics. You know, like one thing we used to do is go stand next to them with a really radical sign that was crazy, so the people driving by don't know the difference. We just think you're one of them, like to make them seem like extremists.
Yes, indeed. That's perfect.
I think we're coming up on a time. I wanted to make one little point about what Holly said, because I absolutely agree about building alternatives, and that's what I've been saying from the start. I'm not too caught up in fighting them. I'm just focused on building something for the rest of us to have, regardless of what happens. But the only thing I want to add is I don't feel like I'm building anything new. I feel like I'm continuing the Western liberal tradition that I've been a part of my entire life that stretches back for centuries. So I don't have to really do a lot of creating or reinventing. All I have to do is just find ways to carry what's already working and has been working forward. But we do need artists to kind of repackage and reshape that for the new age. So we're definitely going to need all of our creative people. If you're out there and want to get involved, find us, please.
You know, and everybody is creative. I mean, being creative, it's just another expression of your being. So, I mean, everyone should express themselves, you know, some way.
Yeah. Creativity is my bread and butter, and I guess it's Holly's chicken and mustard.
There's a very appetizing looking menu. I wish I hadn't looked at the website so early on, because I've spent about half this podcast thinking about what I'm going to eat next.
Yeah, that's about
Funny.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
seriously
I'll still
large.
do like catering orders and stuff like that, you know. I'm just
Not
not
a
gonna
bad
bust my
idea.
ass every weekend because I have to write every weekend. So
Holly, I have got to say, I so much enjoyed today. I didn't know what to expect. And I absolutely enjoyed meeting you, hearing you. I relate to a lot of what you said. I feel like we're twins in a lot of this stuff. And I don't know. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, amen.
it's really, I mean, it really is important for me to just tell people about what happened, because like just telling someone, it just makes you feel better. Like it makes you feel, you know, acknowledged, like someone else sees what happened. So thank you for letting me just tell people about what I went through, because it's really shitty to go through alone. And
That was
other
messed
people,
up.
when you're going through it, you're not alone either. Just they want you to think you're alone. So also reach out, you know, if you're going through that, just reach out and try to tell as many people as you can. That's would be my advice for people dealing with getting canceled. You know?
And there's Counterweight, there's CTA,
Yeah.
there's our podcast. You can email us at jeffandnemo@gmail.com. There's Critical Crossroads Discord server. We'll put the links for all of that in the episode, in the comments.
Cool.
Anybody have anything else they want to wrap up with?
Yeah, I feel quite blessed to meet you today, Holly.
Oh, thank you.
I've
It's
made
so
quite a
sweet.
few notes. Like, I feel like I've learned a ton from you, and you're
you.
just a very impressive person.
Aw,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, I just, yeah, a real pleasure, a real honor to meet you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Let me just say namaste, that the divine in me honors the divine in you. Thank you all.
Thank
It's
you,
a pleasure
Holly.
meeting you, gentlemen. And I hope I'll talk to you again soon.
Anytime you want to come back, let us know. You're always welcome.
Okay,
That's
I
right.
can talk.
Take
All right,
care,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.